Welcome to Home Biz Tax Talk. My name is Lysandra Everett. I am the Home Biz Tax Lady, where I help home business owners win the tax game. Home Biz Tax Talk airs Monday through Friday, 9 o'clock-ish. And when you tune into my show, you're going to hear about topics that are important to the home business community. But today I want to talk about marriage and taxes, okay? Because there are some things that you need to know about how marriage impacts taxes. And this is especially important for people going into a marriage, okay? So, so one of the things that I really want to, to get out there is that, now we're in the age of, you've got two people generally coming together that have stuff. People are getting married later. And, when they're getting married later, everybody, each person is coming with their own stuff. They've got their own jobs, they've got their own houses and all of that stuff. But they can also come with their own tax baggage too that impacts the relationship. And so you need to know these things. And this is, I promise you, this should be an interview question from now on because, back in the day, there really wasn't all this stuff, right? I don't recall like when, at the time when my parents got married, that this was such a big deal, but now it's really a big deal because of the shift in our society. There are, like I said, more women working, men are working, they're coming together and bringing those assets and liabilities together. So let's talk about it. Okay, so your filing status. You have two options when you're married. You either married filing separate or married filing joint, okay? If you are married, living together, there is no head of household, okay? Head of household is a filing status. It is not one person makes more than the other. Your two options are married filing joint, married filing separate, all right? And so that's your marital status as of December 31st. Then you pick one of those. So with that, with married filing joint, married filing separate. Now, married filing joint is generally the better option to go. Married filing separate, I think, is the worst filing status that there is because you have the tendency to lose access to tax credits when you're married filing separately. However, with married filing joint, the thing that you have to know is that when it comes down to tax liability, you are responsible both jointly and severally, which means if they can't get it from both of you, they're coming for one of you, okay? And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So, so when you're talking about entering into a marriage relationship, marriage is not a business, but there is business in marriage. Okay. We got to get the finances right. And so knowing about tax debt and such is such a huge thing because when you marry someone with tax debt, and let's say that you guys, file jointly, and then that other person may have tax debt, may have back child support, owe student loan debt, all those things. If you guys get a refund, they're taking that refund. They don't care that it belongs to you unless you then either file injured spouse. Now, injured spouse, you've got two things when it comes down to the spouses. They sound kind of the same, but they're different. You've got injured spouse and you've got innocent spouse. Injured spouse usually deals with a refund, where innocent spouse usually deals with a tax liability. So in the instance of you got a married couple, one of them may owe back child support, okay? If that's the case, then you can file injured spouse to get your part of the refund back, and their part goes to whatever that past, that tax debt is. Like I said, it can be a debt to to a state, it can be child support, it can be student loan debt, whatever it is. If there's a delinquent, federally related debt, your tax refund can be held for that, okay? So that's what injured spouse does. An injured spouse filing protects you, if you don't have anything going on, it's for you to get your refund and your spouse's refund to go to whatever they got going on. Innocent spouse generally is when you're dealing with a tax debt that one spouse doesn't know about. Innocent spouse comes up a lot when we're talking about domestic violence. If you have one person who has taken complete control of the finances and is abusive to the other person, and the only thing that they're doing is signing, but not really knowing what they're signing or what's going on with the finances, or They might just sign your name and keep it moving, right? So if you don't know, so if you fall into that category and your spouse has created a tax debt that you really have no idea about, then you can file an innocent spouse claim to relieve you of that tax liability. Now, there's a lot that goes into that. It's not just you decide, okay, well, I don't want to fool with that, so I'm going to claim innocent spouse. No, you have to really show and prove that you did not know these things. You know, like I said, in the case of domestic violence, are there police reports? Have you, all of that stuff, have you gone to court? All those things to try to protect yourself. You have to prove that you did not know about this tax liability. So, and I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's something that you have to go through some steps to do. So let's say, for instance, that you also, you and your spouse divorce. Okay. It happens, as Jeff Bezos. Okay. And so if you have a tax liability from the marriage and then you divorce and then you are gone on about your business, you got your whole entire tax life together, then if you get a refund, that refund can be held to satisfy the tax debt that happened during the marriage, even though you may have an agreement that says, hey, that other person did it, they're supposed to pay it. The IRS does not get down with divorce decrees. They look and see who's got money. We got a tax debt, so you are attached to this tax debt. We'll be taking your refund, please and thank you. And so then you have to go to court, take that other person to court to get your money back. Yeah, it gets that complicated. So when we're talking about taxes in marriage, you really got to sit down and know what's going on with your taxes. It is absolutely unacceptable for one spouse to not know what's going on in the other person's tax life. Okay. Even, I have clients who come to me and say, okay, I'm going to file these taxes. And I'm like, excuse me, where's the other person involved in this situation? Because the other person's got to be able to know what this is before they sign it as well. Okay. Because when you sign your tax return, you sign under penalty of perjury that everything in the tax return is true and correct to the best of your knowledge. Well, if you have never reviewed the tax return, then how do you know? And so we as tax professionals have to take extra steps to make sure that each person that's involved in this transaction is very well aware of what's going on here. Okay. So going forward, like if you're the person that just goes out to lunch during tax season, I'm going to need for you to come back to the table. Okay. Come back to the table and know what's going on. And even if before you enter into a marriage relationship, ask about the tax situation. Okay, that used to not be an interview question. It just used to be about credit. No, it's about credit and taxes because taxes don't always show up on a credit report. You don't know, what they got going on, if they've got some payment plan or whatever. So you got to ask those questions. And to be responsible for your financial future, because based on their situation, regardless of the tax credits, married filing separate might be the best idea for you until that whole thing gets resolved, so that you are not taking on that liability. But when you are filing joint, you are accepting that you both are responsible for that tax liability, both jointly and each separately. Okay. So, and that's something that a lot of people don't understand and don't know and don't find out until it's too late. And then, hey, you got to go through a whole bunch of stuff. So that is the deal with marriage and taxes. Before you go into a marriage, a marriage covenant, okay, you got to know what the situation is, because you might need that cleared up before y'all get married. Okay. Let's just be honest. When you're in a marriage relationship, one of y'all don't get to just go out to lunch. Pay attention to what is going on with your tax life, because you might have some questions. You might see some stuff that don't make sense to you. You need to know before you sign your name and say, okay, cool, we'll send it off. Okay. So that's it for today's episode of Home Biz Tax Talk. Again, we air Monday through Friday, 9 o'clock-ish, and you can come right here, and get your questions answered about your home business taxes. All right, have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.